we are going to look at the switch statement, and it is going to be in reference to the menu-driven program that we talked about before. A switch statement is often used when you have several options to select from, and it oftentimes replaces the if, else, if. The general syntax of the statement is as follows. You have a keyword switch followed by an integer expression, which means it can be actually an integer, a character, or we could actually use what's called an enumerated type there. You have the reserved word case, and then you have a matching expression here that you're searching for. So if somebody enters, you might have a 1, 2, 3, 4. So if somebody makes a choice from a menu, if they make choice 1, all of these statements in this set will be executed, and etc. There is a default statement. That is, if none of the options here are available, the default statement would run. So that integer expression, as I said, could be a character. The reason it can be a character is a character will evaluate to an ordinal value, which basically just means it's an integer value. It can also be just a regular integer, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. And the enum we will not cover in this video, but just know that it is possible to have an enumerated type there as well. We are going to take a look at how the switch statement might work in some code. When you have the break statement, you'll see in the next screen, is used to stop execution in the current block. It's also used to exit the switch statement. And then it's useful if you want to execute a single case statement without executing other statements following it. So this is an example of what a switch case statement might look like. The switch keyword and the case are keywords, switch and case. Gender would be a variable or identifier that you would have created, and in this case it's checking a character value, and if the value that was inputted was a F, then it would output female. If it was an M, output male. Otherwise the default is invalid choice there. When you use the switch statement with a menu, we are going to basically follow this structure. We're going to display the menu, get the user input, then check the value that they inputted with the switch statement, and then execute the statements according to that. We'll take a look at the code here in Visual Studio next. This is the code from our previous execution using an if, else, if statement for the menu. We are now going to add an additional source code file here. And just to show you how to do this in Visual Studio, we're going to add an existing item. You do have to know where your code is located in order to do this. It's program number 27 is the one that I want to open. And I also am doing this because I want to show you what might happen when you have two codes that have main in them in the Visual Studio environment. And so right now, I would not, if I try to execute this code, well, the first thing I want to do is we need to put in either our system pause, or you need to use the cn.get commands in order to make the screen pause. If I run this code, it's going to produce an error message. And the reason for that is I actually have two source files over here that are executing a main. And so it's not going to know which code to execute. The error list says we have build errors, and I just want to show you what this error message is going to be. So if I open up or scroll up my error list down here, it says main already defined, one or more multiple defined symbols. And so what's happening there is it doesn't know which main to run. So in Visual Studio, in order to stop executing or to remove one of these programs from the current project, I'm going to right click and I'm going to exclude from project. If you click remove, it deletes it. And I don't want to delete that file. I just want to exclude it from this project. So I exclude from project, and then that file is no longer associated with this project, and it's going to run my switch case statement. So it's the same program as before, except when I enter the choice here, there is some debugging to check to see if a valid choice was entered. And so this is validating the menu. So if choice is greater than 1 and choice is less than or equal to 3, it's doing what's called a range check. It's going to output for how many months. So it's if this if statement does not pass muster, then they're going to ask you or just tell you that the valid choices are 1 through 4. You're going to need to run the program again. So basically, you inputted bad data, you're going to have to run the program again. So assuming that we have correct data, it's going to run this switch case statement. So the choice that I entered, and if you look at the menu choices are 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I inputted with a CIN statement. And it's going to just say, so if the case is 1, if I typed in 1, it's going to calculate adult charges. If I enter 2, child charges, etc. Pay attention to this break statement. The break statement is going to allow us to break out of this structure. And so if I have actually executed case 1, then I'm done. I can break. It'll go to the last line of this particular structure and be done and go on and print the charges on the window, okay, on the console output there. This is what our program looks like. So if I choose child membership and 4 months, it's going to calculate the total charges. And because I have the system pause in there, it will hold the screen open. So it does the same thing that it did in the previous menu-driven program using an if-else, but I prefer to use a switch case statement for a situation like this. There are a few quirks that occur when you're using the switch case statement. So let's look at our source code files and just look through some of the examples. So starting with, I believe here, program number 23. This is a switch case statement and it's using a character. It's very similar to what we just looked at. There is nothing new here. And so that one is pretty straightforward. If they type in the letter A, capital A, it has to be a capital A. Then they're going to output you entered an A and have a break statement. The next screen is a little bit different. And what I want you to notice on this screen is that the break statement is missing, okay? When that break statement is missing, the code does not stop. So if I entered an A, if that was true, it would output A, B, and C because it just does what I call a fall through. It falls through all of those statements. If I entered a C, it's only going to enter the C and then the default would also be executed. So it's actually going to print all of these. That's program number 24. We might try to run that here in just a minute. Program 25 shows another example of a case statement where there is fall through. So you have case 300, 200, 100, and this one, the example here gives you why you might want to do that. So you have 3 different models, and each model has a basically more built-in functions. So if you get a 100 model, you're just going to get a flat screen. If you have a 200 model, you get both high definition and a flat screen. And if you get a 300 model, then you get everything. So in this case, that fall through makes sense because if you choose the higher model, they're going to print out all of these options that you get. And now notice that there is a break here before the default. So it's going to output however many options you get on your TV, and then it's going to break. If you don't choose 100, 200, or 300 for your model styles, then it's going to default and let you know that you can only choose 100, 200, or 300. Program 26 shows you what you can do if the user is inputting letters and you want to consider both capital A and lowercase a. Because of that fall through, you can say case lowercase a and then case capital A and then output whatever the option is that you want. And so if it's basically this is saying if it's case lowercase a or uppercase a, lowercase b or uppercase b, etc., it's going to run this code that corresponds with that. And then example 20 or program 27 was the switch case statement that we looked at in the video earlier. And I believe that is, well, here's another one. And this one actually uses an enumerated type. And I might do a separate video, but just as a quick view, an enumerated type is a data type where you can set or use basically words as values, and then you can assign them an integer value. So this one is going to have Tom, Sharon, Bill, Teresa, John, but they are going to have a numeric value associated with them. Tom is 1, Sharon is 2, Bill is 3, etc. So you can actually use the switch case statement here in order to output the different birth dates is what this program is doing. So it's showing you an example of an enumerated type. That is it for our examples on the switch case statements.